You're listening to Systemic Era Podcast. The failure was designed.
Reagan aide claims Lindsey Graham's death makes the world a safer place, based on an article by Adam Lynch. Lindsey Graham was not a fluke. He was the job description. Doug Bandow's attack on Lindsey Graham is brutal, and the anger is earned by the record the source lays out: Yemen, Iran, constant war cheerleading, and a long career spent dressing up bloodshed as statesmanship. But the sharper point is not that Graham was unusually vile. It is that Washington kept making room for him because the institution wanted what he was selling. The power was never just him. Graham held actual power because the Senate gives hawks a microphone, a network, and access to presidents who want cover for violence. The source notes his role after John McCain as an informal leader of the bipartisan war bloc. That matters more than personality. Graham was not freelancing from the margins. He was operating inside the core machinery of U.S. foreign policy, where senators, presidents, defense officials, and aligned interest groups turned intervention into routine. His influence came from proximity to power, not combat experience, not strategic insight, and certainly not accountability. The system elevated him because he was useful, a reliable bridge between the national security state, donors, foreign allies, and the political class that likes force when it can be packaged as patriotism. The misdirection is the point. Bandow correctly names Graham as a warmonger, but the broader narrative still risks narrowing the blame to one loud operator. That is too neat. Graham did not invent the war party, he inherited and amplified it. The source itself says he succeeded McCain as the informal leader of a bipartisan machine. That is the rebel scandal. Washington loves an easy villain because it lets the machinery survive. One senator becomes the face of the problem, while the institutions that empowered him continue untouched. That is not confusion. It is a form of political self-protection. The same state that produced Graham will keep producing his successors as long as war remains a career path. Yemen, Iran, and the cost of elite theater. The source is explicit about consequences. Americans killed, bases damaged, money wasted, markets jolted, partners destabilized, and Iran strengthened. Those are not abstract policy disagreements. They are the practical result of elite performance art disguised as foreign policy. Graham's record, as described here, runs through some of the ugliest recent chapters of U.S. power: support for Saudi slaughter in Yemen, indulgence toward a murderous crown prince after Jamal Khashoggi's dismemberment, and eagerness for an illegal war of aggression against Iran. That is not a series of misjudgments. It is a pattern of choosing violence while pretending it is order. Trump did not break the pattern. The source notes Graham's shameless pivot once Trump took power. That is not hypocrisy in the casual sense. It is institutional opportunism. When the incentives change, the price changes, but the underlying appetite for domination stays intact. Trump did not end the war consensus. He gave it a blunter vocabulary. Graham adapted because the rebel loyalty was never to principle. It was to power, access, and the right to steer policy toward coercion while calling it rebelism. What this reveals: the larger story is that U.S. militarism is not sustained by one senator's bloodlust. It is sustained by a governing culture that rewards escalation, lauds aggression when wrapped in bipartisan language, and treats foreign suffering as a manageable side effect. Graham was effective because Washington is built to reward exactly that kind of cruelty. If Democrats are serious about being the institutional alternative to authoritarian politics, they cannot keep tolerating this war infrastructure as background noise. The Senate's permanent interventionists are not a side issue. They are one of the ways the state launders violence into legitimacy. Graham's career is not an exception. It is a warning label on the system that made him powerful. You've been listening to Systemic Error. Thanks to Alternet for today's article. With the automated voice of Arctic, thanks for listening.